Hailing frequencies open, and welcome to Star Trek Discoverage, the live podcast that boldly goes into excruciating detail about this week's episode of Star Trek Discovery. I'm your host, Aaron Coker, a.k.a. Caliban, and I'll say it if nobody else is going to. Illusions, Michael. A trick is something Lore does to his brother Data. Joining me on the show as usual is my co-host. She's also the co-host of the Generations Geek podcast, a more or less family-friendly celebration of geekdom on the Chronic Rift Network. It's Ella Pearson. Ella, welcome back.
Thank you.
How are you this week?
I'm good. A little bit more homework than usual this week.
Yeah.
And then really it was just me waiting for this episode to drop. So now I feel better and worse.
I hear processing. I hear digital wheels turning from the other end of the line here.
Oh, yeah? Can you hear me okay, or is it just annoying? Okay.
No, I hear your mind working.
Oh, my mind.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or not working, as the case may be.
I have some things to say.
Well, hold on to them. Hold on to those things. We'll get to those in just a second. Also joining us once again on Discoverage, he's a former guest on Enterprising Individuals as well. It's Thad Haight of the Delta Flyer podcast. Every week on Delta Flyer, Thad and his co-host Stuart go episode by episode through Star Trek Voyager. Thad, welcome to the show.
Hi, it's great to be back.
It's great to have you here. I started a rewatch of Voyager myself currently, and I haven't gotten very far yet. And it's a well-known fact that Trek series usually need a year or two to really find their feet. Can you say where that point is for Voyager, where Voyager really starts to take off?
I would say probably partway through the second season is when it starts to get better. I think there are some really good standout moments of the first season, but they were still definitely trying to figure things out. Pretty much once Neelix and Tom Paris stop having their weird jealous feud, then things are much better.
Okay. I'll watch for that. We were talking last week about an idea that at least I was pretty excited about. I wanted to get your opinion. 2 words: Voyager babies. What do you think?
So you mean like? Do you mean like a kids show about Voyager children, or do you mean the children of Voyager crew members?
Well, I like your idea too. No, like Jim Henson's Voyager babies.
Okay.
Right,
yeah, that could be interesting.
Yeah, Janeway, she's slightly older. She's the kind of bossy one, right? And then it kind of goes down the line. You've got, young Tuvok, although not that young as well. And then Harry Kim's just a baby. He's just in a diaper. He's on the console. Just sucking on a pacifier.
Yeah, I was going to say there wouldn't be much difference with Harry Kim.
Yeah, pretty much. His character arc would be exactly the same. Well, thanks for joining us tonight. Just a little Trek news talk before we get into tonight's episode. I'm sure that you guys have heard the news that 2 actors have been cast as regulars, presumably, for the upcoming Picard show.
I saw the news. I did not read what actors they were, but I was like, great.
Luckily, I can tell you it's actor Santiago Cabrera. He's been cast as a regular, and Michelle Hurd has been cast as well. And they've both, I'm not super familiar with them. They've both done a lot of episodic TV work and a lot of kind of genre stuff. And nobody really knows who they're going to play. There was a list of potential characters that's been going around the internet. People think that possibly Cabrera will be playing the role of Lawrence, who is a pilot, and he's described as a thief with a dodgy moral compass. And people think that Hurd will possibly be the role of Alana. She's described as a brilliant former intelligence officer with a history of personal and professional loss and substance abuse. So it seems like not everything is going to be so bright and shiny in the future of Picard's future.
Well, I think they had pretty much already said that, even from the very beginning when they first announced the show.
That Picard would be in a different place than when he left. Yeah. Is there a future Trek project that you're particularly looking forward to, Thad?
Definitely the, as yet, mostly unnamed, but possibly called Destiny Picard show.
Right.
I'm definitely really looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to more Discovery, since Discovery has been renewed now.
Yes.
I mean, let's be honest. If it has Star Trek in the name, I'm gonna watch it.
You're there. It's a date. Ella, what about you? We've talked about this before, but have your opinions updated at all?
I don't know if they've updated. I think I'm the most excited for Lower Decks.
Oh, okay, yeah. I'm really excited to find out more about that as well. I read a thing with Jonathan Frakes recently, who said that he'd seen like scenes or parts or maybe the script from it, and he says that it's really funny. So if number one says it's funny, then that's enough for me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's get into talking about the episode here. We've seen the 8th episode of Star Trek Discovery, Season 2, If Memory Serves, and we're here to break it down for you. Before we start, as always, we're setting a course for the spoiler zone, listeners, so be warned. We're glad you've decided to join us, but if you haven't seen the episode, spoilers are incoming. The official synopsis for If Memory Serves is Spock and Burnham head to Talos 4, where the process of healing Spock forces the siblings to confront their troubled past. Stamets desperately tries to reconnect with an increasingly disconnected Hugh, while Tyler struggles to shed the crew's suspicions of him due to his past as Voq. This episode is written by Jay Beatty and Dan Dworkin. This is Beatty and Dworkin's first script for Trek. They also have a consulting producer credit for the episode Light and Shadows, and they've got a long career in television as a partnership, writing and producing for shows such as Revenge, Matador, and Scream, the series. And the episode was directed by T.J. Scott. Scott also has a long career in television. He's directed on shows like Andromeda, Dark Matter, and Gotham. He also directed the Discovery Season 1 episode The Wolf Inside. And let's talk about theories really quick. This is usually the part in the show where we kind of check up on how we're doing with some of the theories. We could talk a little bit about the Red Angel, I guess, and what we think is going on there. We get a pretty significant piece of the puzzle this week in that Spock mind melds, or we see him mind meld with the Red Angel. And let's face it, Spock would mind meld with a tuna sandwich if he was bored. He mind melds with everything, but
It's true.
he seems to determine that the mind of the Red Angel, at least, is human. What do you think that could entail? Dad, do you have any favorite pet theories about who the Red Angel is?
So I still want it to be Future Guy from Enterprise, but it's not going to be.
That would be a strong connection, yeah.
The theory that I think is more likely is that it's Future Burnham.
Future Burnham?
Really?
I don't know. It's just something that it. Okay, so we know the Angel is female, or at least we strongly suspect. We know the Angel is human, or at least we strongly suspect.
Right.
I kind of feel like it's Burnham going back in time to like make things better than they were.
Burnham in like an endgame situation, like she has lived through the kind of crappy future that they see, and so she has attained this technology and tried to go back and change it?
Possibly, or it might be a self-determination thing, like Burnham, like maybe Red Angel Burnham remembers the Red Angel coming back and knows that she has to go back and do it, otherwise it won't happen.
Okay, I like that. That's cool. Kind of a Bill and Ted thing. What about you, Ella? You've had a lot of time to think about this.
I'm very floored by the idea that it's Michael. But it makes sense, right? Because it's like so much of the stuff is like stuff that she was alone in the wilderness of Vulcan, right? So
right.
But no, I don't know. I was very shocked that Spock was just like, well, you're here, I'm here, like, let's go.
Yeah.
No worse than Beecher.
Yeah, right. I think it's Tig Notaro. I mean, where's she? she's really good at cobbling things together, right? Like good with technology. So maybe she says, wow, this crew's really screwed up. I better do something, and runs off and builds some suit and figures it all out. She seems to be a real handy person.
That would be like literally best case scenario.
Okay. Well, put me in for that. Something else I wanted to talk to you guys about as experts is I wanted to get the timeline right. I mean, this is a historic episode, of course, because we see Talos 4 and the Talosians, who appeared in the original unaired pilot for Star Trek The Cage, which, of course, was adapted into the two-parter The Menagerie for the first season of TOS. And I've seen a lot of people online saying, okay, I'm watching The Menagerie, I'm boning up, I'm doing my homework, I'm watching The Cage, and that's great. But I'm also seeing a lot of people who aren't totally clear on the overall timeline of how The Cage, The Menagerie, and this episode now, If Memory Serves, stack up. And you, Thad, thou art the man who can set people straight. We're not shaming anyone.
All right.
We just want everybody to get where we're at so they can enjoy what's going on and how important it is. So what's the sequence of events from what we've seen?
Well, Discovery is in between the cage and the menagerie. The
Sure.
cage happened a few years ago. Now we have Discovery, and then in like slightly less than 10 years, we'll have the menagerie, which will show flashbacks of the cage.
Right. Exactly. That's how I understand it. Also, I had a question, too. So the cage has always had a weird position in continuity in that, of course, it was used to make the menagerie, but was never officially aired. But it's pretty much generally held up as canon. I mean, we have an entire series of Discovery that basically treats it as canon. But what do you think about, like, the last couple minutes of the cage, wherein we see Vina get, a dream version of Pike to live with? That scene is obviously repeated in, quote unquote, real time in the menagerie. But do you think that the last couple minutes of the cage are canon as well?
Well, I always assumed they were. It seemed interesting, though, because in this episode, Pike seemed unaware of Dream Pike.
Right. And it's also confused a little bit more because Vina makes it fairly clear that she did receive a Dream Pike. And so we can assume that happened for her. But the fact that Pike is ignorant of it, that does seem weird.
Yeah.
So it's just cast into even more doubt, which is why canon is a dirty word and you can't trust it. Who cares? What do you guys think about the Federation having a death penalty?
I've always thought it made no sense. It's not.
Yeah.
It seems to go against everything the Federation stands for. And in fact, last season, Admiral Cornwell says the Federation has no death penalty, which makes me wonder if that death penalty was instituted because of something that's happening this season.
I see. So, so it comes after. Interesting. So they originate General Order 7, but maybe it's just you'll get in trouble, and it isn't specific to a death penalty, and that comes later. That would be an interesting regression, but yeah, I could see that happening. Thad was on Enterprising Individuals recently, and we talked about a TNG episode that was specifically about the death penalty, the episode Justice. It's right in the title. And it's also an episode with a lot of original series DNA in it, having been written by John D.F. Black and Worley Thorne. And in that episode, Picard's pretty down on the idea of execution in that episode. So, I mean, it seems clear that, by the time we reach TNG, opinions will be totally different, no matter what happens or may not happen after this episode.
Yeah, as far as I know, the menagerie is the only time in Star Trek that we reference a Federation death penalty.
Yeah. Who do you think deserves death more, a trespasser on Talos or a kid who falls into a flower bed?
Well, Wesley's more annoying, especially in season 1, so probably him.
Wow, ruthless. Just coming for Will Wheaton out of the gate.
Yeah. Wesley, don't call him as a character witness. That's not going to help you at all. Well, as far as new theories go, before we get to the real meat of the episode, we get another flash this week of Arium and her magic eyes. So what's going on with Dr. Robot? That's what I want to know.
Well, she set up Ash.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
For sure. Yes.
And I like the idea.
I love that.
I like the idea too that our favorite, former Klingon, is doing his best. He's been combative, and that's, I think, speaking of character witnesses, worked against him. But it's like, it's not my fault. Come on, he was the perfect person to set up.
Yeah, no, she totally did. If it wasn't already obvious, they focused in on her eyes and made them flash right after it happened.
Right. Yeah. And we'll talk about it a little later when we talk about what's coming up next week. We definitely see some stuff going on there too. So, what were your general impressions? What did you guys think of If Memory Serves? Thad, what'd you think?
I think I may have a new favorite episode of the season. I need to watch it again to be sure.
Sure.
But up until this point, New Eden had been my favorite of the season, and I think I like this one a little more.
Okay, interesting. Ella?
Me too. I think it's gonna be my favorite and
You
stay
can't
my
say
favorite.
that every week.
No, but this week is the one.
Okay.
This week is it because of the intro.
Yeah.
I know. How awesome was that?
Amazing. Oh, I was literally for a second I clicked show. Am I what?
Yeah.
Oh my god, yeah, it killed me.
That was really great, and this was not I did enjoy this a lot. It was not my favorite episode. I can say that with authority, but that was a very special moment, and I think that we knew that they knew that it was important. I mean, as fans, we definitely think it's important, but I like the fact that they tipped their cap to that with that previously on Star Trek. And it reminds me, and we're doing it again, of something in Farscape where at the very last episode of Farscape before they were canceled, this is before the movie came out, they said previously on Farscape, and then they showed a single frame or maybe a couple frames from every single episode. So it's just this rush of 4 years of images. And then they finally say, and finally on Farscape for their last episode. So anyway, it's kind of what it reminded me of. You think about like what's the longest jump cut in movie history? They say, it's the ape throwing the bone up in 2001, and then it becoming a spaceship. Like, this is like a huge jump from 1965 or whatever it was until now.
Yeah.
I thought that was really great.
It's literally referencing the oldest produced piece of Star Trek in the newest produced piece of Star Trek.
Yeah, yeah. Shut it down. Shut it all down. We did it. We're done. As the episode opens, so Leland is talking to a group of admirals, and it's always interesting to see them introduce kind of new characters, even if they're background characters. But I thought that this was kind of weirdly... possibly suggestive. Like, is this like a cabal, you think, of bad admirals that he's talking to? Like, why is he, as a Section 31 guy, specifically talking to these people?
I thought that was cool. It could very well be a group of bad admirals. What I thought was really cool about this scene, though, is that there were 4 admirals, and they each represented the 4 founding member species of the Federation.
Yeah.
Yep. That was we had a Tellarite and a Andorian and a Vulcan, and then we had a guy. I don't know if you saw the guy in the back, but he looks like Admiral Squiggy. Like he had this little like thing of hair coming down his forehead. I didn't know what they were going for, but it reminded me of Squiggy. Yeah, that was really neat. So again, they just kind of throw admirals in and out. Last season, and I think 1 or 2 episodes this season, we had the Vulcan admiral, the bald guy. So I don't know. I didn't know if we were going for like a kind of X-Files thing, like these are the guys like behind, the Section 31 or something. But that was a suggestion that I kind of got from it. Let's talk about the big thing here. Of course, the big one, Talos 4. Our characters Burnham and Spock, of course, go there. I love the Interstellar shout out. I assume that's what it was when they originally get there and they think it's a black hole. And, of course, they don't want to fly into it, and then Spock flies them into it. But the visuals of it reminded me a lot of Gargantua from Interstellar.
I hadn't even thought of that.
Seeing that kind of... I'm trying to think of like how we've represented black holes in the past, like a warped star field or maybe just a black hole. But post-Interstellar, they seem to have that, the accretion disk and that sort of look from the black hole in the movie Interstellar. So if that's what they were doing, kudos. I like that.
Yeah.
We get to Talos 4 and we see Talosians, and we specifically, you don't get this necessarily visually, but I was watching with the closed captioning on, and we see that there are male Talosians and female Talosians, which I thought was an interesting choice. As people know, like the primary Talosians in The Cage were played by women, voiced by men, to give an unsettling effect. Also, the Talosians are an atrophied race who have kind of moved beyond, the physical form, so possibly they're asexual. But this establishes that there are male and female, technically, Talosians.
Here's a question. Do the Talosians even have physical form, or do they just make us think they have physical form?
If they did, why would they pick that form?
That's what I was going to say.
There are no hat stores on Talos 4, yeah. Maybe they do. Maybe because we've only seen them meet humans and one Vulcan, so maybe they scan our minds and they think, what are these guys impressed by? Guys in pool covers with huge heads. Yeah, right. And get the throbby veins in there. Get that. That's what people want. What I want to know is, have the Talosians been adding to their menagerie? They let Pike go because humans, apparently have a hatred of captivity. But do they still draw in people who happen across their planet?
I'm assuming they do, because they're
right?
trying to find people to help restore the planet, and they need people. They say in The Cage that he's doomed them to death by not staying. So I imagine they're still looking for people.
Talos needs moms, right? I wonder. So why are they helping Spock in this case? They've seen what's in his mind, and they too fear the eradication of all life in the galaxy? I guess.
I guess.
Yeah, like they know what he knows, and he knows they know what he knows,
Yeah.
and they know he knows. They know.
Stop it!
But
Stop.
does he know they know he knows they know?
I don't know if he knows if they know that he knows that they know. That's all I can assume. There's lots of great Easter eggs here. You know, of course, we get a nod to the singing plants, and
That was
Burnham,
so cute.
Burnham almost replicates exactly Spock's actions in the cage. Yeah. And of course, Vina appears, played by Melissa George, which that was the big surprise to me. Was there an announcement that she would be in this season?
I don't believe
I
so.
don't know.
Yeah, I didn't.
I was. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was like probably about 50% expecting, or I guess expecting a 50% chance that there would be Vina in this episode, because I feel like it would have been really weird if there wasn't.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I don't think there was any announcement.
Because she is I mean, I'm not sure that she's super famous, but she's done a lot of work like in BBC shows and some movies and stuff like that. So that, to me, that's like on the level of a Rebecca Romijn. Like, we got Rebecca Romijn. Getting Melissa George is kind of a big deal too. So clearly they wanted to make that something of a surprise. Not having her, yeah, I agree that would have been weird. Discovery has definitely worn its heart and everything else on its sleeve, and I think that you could have made a case for them to, you know, if Spock could just be like, there was a woman named Vina here. Is she around? She's doing something else. She's feeding the chicken or something like that. But Discovery wouldn't do that. They're like, you know what you're here for. You're here for big heads. You're here for guys in silver pool covers. You're here for, Vina. So
You're here for pointy metallic stilettos.
Right, we got to bring all
You're
that
here
out.
for singing blue plants.
Singing plants, do it, yeah, the whole
Yes.
thing. We just unfortunately we don't have Susan Oliver, but we can do one better on that. So, let's take a break real quick before we talk about the end of the galaxy and talk about our new segment. We've actually been doing it, but now it's concreted as a segment called Now What?, where Captain Pike incredulously finds out another secret that his crew has been hiding from him. Every single week this happens. He should just line everybody up and ask them point blank, what are you hiding? Detmer? Owo? Anything you want to tell me? Computer? I hate scanning things. Okay, computer, now we've got that out of the way. Okay. Tonight, he finds out about the former relationship between Tyler and Burnham, which, until he had mentioned it, I'd kind of forgot about. I mean, Tyler has his hands full this week with Pike and Culber, but how do you think that he really feels about Burnham at this point?
How Pike feels about Burnham?
No, Tyler.
Complicated.
They seem complicated, but they seem chill, right? Like when they were like
Friendly exes?
they were talking. Well, yeah, when he was on Kronos, they were talking. Like they seemed like weirdly close. I feel like they're chill. I don't know.
Yeah. Dad, did you get that impression?
Like
In that scene, yes, when he was on Kronos and they were, but then when they've interacted a bit on the Discovery, it was a little more awkward, but that's understandable.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, mostly they're okay, but it is obviously complicated.
Yeah, and I wonder as
But
well.
Ash is like,
Oh, I'm
he's
sorry.
like all in on like trusting Michael.
Yeah.
He's like, oh yeah, I trust Michael more than anything.
Yeah, he definitely trusts her.
Yeah.
And I'm not 100% sure on exactly how much time has passed since the first season, but he was involved with Laurel, up until like shortly, and he's definitely, people question his nature, his sort of dual-sided nature, but he seems more centered. I just feel like in the first season, if Burnham was in trouble, he would have been freaking out and like, we gotta go get her, like we gotta help out.
Oh,
and
definitely.
in this,
yeah.
he's just like, she's got it. Also, she'll yell at me if I run in and try to help her. Like definitely, she's got it. So we don't have to mess with that at all.
That's what he should have said to Pike. He should have said exactly what he was thinking. It's like,
Yeah.
I mean, you can try it, but like, she'll be mad, dude.
Yeah. She's not gonna like that. Okay, so let's talk about the end of the universe, or at least all sentient life in the galaxy. We find out that I think, as we had speculated last week, Ella, that Spock's got a time mind. He's got time brain. He's got these thoughts and these visions in his head that don't fit with logic or continuity, which we do every day as sci-fi fans. But anyway, whatever, Spock. And so he's got to go to Talos and get this worked out. And in his visions, we see, I don't know how else to describe them, but we see these kind of like squid things, like these squid bots or squid ships. Later on,
Cephalopods.
Cephalopods, yeah. Tilly does describe them as cephalopods, so that's what we're supposed to think. I don't know if you guys have played the game Mass Effect for the PC or Xbox or a PlayStation, but they remind me of Reapers from that game. The Reapers.
I've been meaning to play that.
Well, I don't want to ruin anything, but there's the overarching enemy.
I haven't played. Yeah, but I know what you're talking about.
The overarching enemy in Mass Effect is a race of machine life forms called the Reapers, and their goal is to essentially wipe out all organic life in the universe. So I got like a strong Reaper vibe from these guys.
Yeah, I don't know what else. I'm having trouble of thinking of something else besides the Borg that's so like overwhelmingly like, oh yeah, we're gonna do this to everyone. Everything will be gone, you know?
Yeah. Can you speculate about what their purpose might be in wanting to eliminate all life?
I mean, I'm trying to think if I were gonna eliminate all life, what would my motive be? And I feel like it would have to be something dumb. Yeah.
I think Thad and I talked about godlike aliens on that Justice show too, I think. And we were talking about how their motivations are often unknowable unless they are John Delancey and they just come out and tell you, you guys, you think you're hot shit, but you're not. So I wonder if it's like you said, Ella, if it's like a Borg type thing where they have some kind of directive, or if they, are some kind of superior race and they're just trying to assert themselves, or what it could be. I also think it's kind of weird that clearly this is the big threat. And I know that the show, as a sci-fi show on modern TV, wants to keep things back from us, but it's kind of weird that we're just now finding out that this is the big bad, the big issue in the season.
Yeah.
Also,
go ahead.
No, you go.
Well, no, go ahead.
No.
Ella, go.
Would it be too lame if I hadn't felt what if this that technology is just left over from something else? It's all there's no people on there, you know what I mean? It's just a bunch of weapons that are just the wheels are still turning.
Oh.
That's another season 1 TNG episode.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a full threat. It's just it's a season 1 TNG episode.
Arsenal of Freedom with Vincent Schiavelli, right? Yeah.
One of 3 times that they separate the saucer.
Right, well, yeah. Berserker probe situation. That's interesting. I wonder, because I'm always thinking about what they're trying to say, because Good Trek is trying to say something. So I wonder who then would be responsible for that. In an act of hubris, they created some kind of super machine. Maybe it's the machine descendants of Arium. Maybe she turns into some kind of Robo Queen, and splits off.
Oh God!
Like a Brainiac situation.
So last week I was thinking that Arium was going to turn into Zora from the short trek Calypso.
Okay.
I'm not so sure about that anymore. I don't know.
I can see that though.
As far as what's going on, okay, so the squid things are obviously the same thing that came back and attacked the shuttle last week.
Yeah.
And they said that was 500 years in the future, which we're coming back to my future guy theory.
Daniels.
That's the same time period that the future guy was sending his messages to the Suliban from.
Yeah, right. A temporal Cold War thing.
Right. So, again, they're probably not gonna tie this into the temporal Cold
What
War.
if they
and
are
Enterprise.
though?
But I feel like they are doing a good job of making it look like they might.
Yeah.
So you think it's a campaign of kind of misinformation using what we know about pre-existing canon?
I have trouble believing that they're actually going to tie that in because
That's some
just
three-dimensional
because-
chess.
yeah, I don't think they want to reference that because, well, yes, there are lots of Star Trek fans who know all about that. There are also a lot of Star Trek fans who never watched Enterprise or only watched a little Enterprise. Enterprise does not have the same resonance in the canon as TOS.
Right.
So I feel like I personally like Enterprise, but I don't think they're gonna do that.
What if it's come for the TOS, stay for the Enterprise? What if they're hooking people with the Captain Pike, and then they're going to trick you into liking, a connection between this era and the Enterprise era?
So would you say they took a long road to get from there to here?
All right, we got to end this show right now. Possibly, yeah. I guess I would say that if I was an asshole. This is my new favorite theory. I actually would really like to see that happen because all right, we've all made mistakes, but I'm tired of Enterprise being the redheaded stepchild of the canon. Bring it in. That's what I say.
Yeah, absolutely.
As the most time traveliest one of all, definitely. Let's talk about the soap opera aspects of the show this week and the relationships that are going on or coming apart. We see continued tensions between Culber and Stamets as far as them. Culber trying to settle into his life, and Stamets being just a little too sort of attentive and probably off-putting for him, trying to get him back in. I noticed, I think this has got to be a choice, but Culber always wears white in his medical uniform, and he's wearing a black jumper now. So this is the other side of Culber.
Yeah, no, and this was forecasted last week, and in the last couple episodes, we've seen Culber definitely is acting as if he's not in the same place in his life. So I was expecting a confrontation like this to happen.
Yeah, and in
Definitely.
true form to Discovery, they don't waste any time. They get right to it. Last week you kind of wonder, boy, that'll be weird sharing a ship with Tyler, and this week it's like, come on, let's do this right now. High school
It's like
cafeteria
fight.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Also, I love Saru.
Yeah, what was that?
Sorry,
Let them fight.
Saru's it's like first he was like just angry. He was like rage guy on the bridge, and now he's like calm rage sensei, and he's like, this just has to play out.
Yeah.
They have to get it out.
Let him go.
They're men.
Yeah, I was totally Tilly in that scene where she's like, "Are you sure?"
Is this right?
Tilly's like, is this allowed? Is this like?
Yeah, we did. We got a line last week, I think it was, about, hey, let's not have this macho bullshit. And it's like, oh, okay, well, I guess we're going to do some macho
Oh, we're going to have it, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, what do you do? There's
guys,
no... So go ahead.
I want them to be best friends. I want them to be best friends because who else is he going to turn to?
Of course they will be.
Like, when I thought he was just going to walk over and sit down at his table, like nothing had happened, and just start talking to him.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, no, he's going to punch him. And then I was like, no, now they're going to talk. And I was like, oh, no, they're going to fight. And then I was like, oh, they're going to stop fighting, and now they're going to be friends. And then, like, Ash left, and I was like, no.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely, first of all, like, what do you do? There's no Hallmark card for sorry I broke your neck, but we definitely
God.
we're trying to indicate a huge change in the personality here of Culber because he's been such a gentle kind of person before, and now he's just like, what's up? Let's do this. So yeah, that is definitely strange and something to watch. And again, we get that scene. My favorite part was the scene in the Turbo Lift after where Pike's like, okay, you did what? This is something else about my crew now that I have to look out for. You're just going to let them fight? Okay.
Also, I just love Ash. Like, he's, like, using the voice you would use if there was, like, a bear near you. You know what I mean? He's just like, I am sorry. I don't expect you to understand. You know,
Right.
it wasn't me.
It would have been really bad if he had accidentally slipped into Volk voice at that point.
Oh my god, he
I'm
starts
sorry.
speaking in Klingon.
Oh my god, you're gonna die.
Dead on the spot.
Yeah.
I also like the fact that we saw janitor robots. That's what those were, right? While they're sitting and talking
Yeah.
after the thing. Yeah, we always wonder, like, who cleans up in the Star Trek universe? And I think this is the first time that we've seen, little floating robots come and pick everything up. So, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, because I've speculated about Starfleet Roombas before on Delta Flyer.
Yes.
There you
And
go.
yeah, now we know. Yep, they've got them.
Let's talk about, we're just going from strength to strength here. Let's talk about the relationship between Michael and Spock. And we see the incident that we see two incidents. We see the visitation of the Red Angel to Spock as a child, and then we see the rift that is the start of the rift between the two of them when they are young. And the first is interesting because it appears that the Red Angel's visions aren't necessarily deterministic, like what will come to pass. They are possible alternate futures, which is interesting. And the second was, of course, it's almost as huge as just the Talos 4 thing, is that it's basically giving us like the underlying reason why Spock ultimately turns to his Vulcan side for the life of the character. Like, what did you guys think about them taking a stand like that?
I cried. I'm not afraid to admit it.
Okay, all right. It's very
It
brave.
was a
of you.
moment for me. I do think they're both being a little overdramatic about it. Like, but I don't expect really anything less from them, like, or from Spock, because I feel like he does a lot of like, oh well, if you're gonna say that, then we won't speak for 10 years,
Right.
type
Yeah.
stuff.
You don't need to have emotions
then-
to be drama. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. But then at the end, he was like, "No, I know exactly what you were doing. I just didn't like it, or like
Yeah,
whatever." And it's
right.
like, okay.
Yeah, it was very touching. It was, and I have to imagine that deep down, Spock probably already had figured that out a long time ago.
Yeah.
Even before she showed him the memory, that he probably had figured out that she had done that to keep him away, not to insult,
Yeah.
not to hurt him, and not to actually say which. Like, I'm sure it still hurt, but I just feel like a person like Spock would have done the self-reflection and realized as he got older, he's like, oh, she was probably just pushing me away for my safety.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I don't know, I think I probably also need to watch it again and take time to kind of process it. But I feel like I didn't quite buy it. Like, I bought their motivations and I bought what the characters were feeling, but I felt like they were trying to, much in the same way that you were talking about, trying to tie Enterprise, in the Temporal Cold War into Discovery. I felt like they were trying to finally cement Michael in the canon, in a way that was indelible, and also explain why, we haven't heard of her. And again, canon, dirty word. It's not really my point. I just, with 50 years of a character and then her being like, and the reason he did all that is because I said he was a freak. It was like, I'm not sure that I totally swallowed that. But if he was going to kind of do that anyway, but he also just used that as an excuse to be petty because, again, you don't need emotions to be petty.
It's true.
I need a moment for the little cherub who plays young Spock. I feel like we talk about him every time he
Yeah.
has one screen, but he's still so precious.
Yeah. He is very super precious. And I mean, that's the way you want to go. I don't know how you would find. Get me a little Leonard Nimoy. Like, you don't want that.
Give me a small, angry child.
Yellow skinned. Yeah. give me a cute kid. Not some jaundiced tot. Yeah. Anything else that you guys wanted to touch upon that we haven't talked about yet?
should have seen the illusion at the end coming, but I didn't.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
thought Section 31 actually did beam them up.
Yeah, once the Telosians are involved, you can't trust anything you see. I thought it was interesting that we got, and this is just a little drop, but it's like huge ramifications, that apparently Giorgio killed the Mirror Telosians. They're all gone in the Mirror Universe.
That didn't surprise me in the slightest.
Who
Yeah.
hasn't she killed in the Mirror
Yeah.
Universe? Every
Like-
week she's like, well, they're all dead.
Every
so...
aside's going to, oh, Q? Yeah, killed him. Yeah, no big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Because she blew up the Klingon homeworld. She destroyed Mintaka 3 for some reason.
Right.
I guess maybe they told her she was God and she didn't like that. I don't know.
Yeah. Ray Wise looked at her funny and she's, blow up the planet.
So yeah, it's just like she just kills everyone.
I got a question. Is the blonde engineer that we see, is that the woman that played Arium in the first season?
I believe so.
I think so too.
Sarah Middich is her name.
Yeah.
Because we did see her as a blonde engineer in the first episode of the season when they were setting up the anti-grav thing to catch the dark matter asteroid.
Right.
She was one of the people that was setting that up and she looked familiar here, so I think it's the same person.
Okay. I'd have to see her, have her move her head and make some lightsaber sounds, and maybe it'll match it up. I also really liked the fact they didn't have to do a connection between Vina meeting Pike, but they did, and I think they handled it well. How do you have a connection between them but not spoil their reunion to 10 or whatever years later in the menagerie? And I thought they did a good job with that, having her be present. And also, just practically, it was kind of cool. What's your problem? We can't communicate with anybody without Section 31 tapping in. So the Telosians give them, a mind connection. And I thought it was really neat how the sort of last third of his ready room became a big, TV where he could just talk to them. I thought that was visually, that was very striking.
Yeah, and Anson Mount's performance was, stunning.
You can see, or I can,
always.
yeah, I can see now why they cast him as a guy that wouldn't talk at all in Humans, because he could communicate so subtly, what's going on with him, even as Pike he has to maintain composure. He's doing a really great job.
Can we talk about how how this episode was shot?
Sure.
Did you guys I feel like there were just there were lots of really wide angles that were, and I get when they're doing the illusion stuff, the weird wide angle, weird stuff is fantastic, normal. I want it. I understand. But even in the turbo lift, there would be this wide angle shot that was distorting the edges of the characters, or they had a lot of really weird angles, close up angles on Giorgio. And then they were also really tight on Stamets and Colbert when they were fighting. There was just lots of weird stuff, and I couldn't really figure out what. I don't know if you guys noticed this, but I couldn't figure out what it was trying to say.
I don't
know if it's because
trying to communicate, intensity, kinetic motion. I noticed that there was even in the scene where he's what's his name? Stamets is trying to just serve him some soup, and they kind of start to get in a fight. There's 8 cuts from the time that Culper yells at him, gets up, and then walks out the door. So yeah, I mean they're just just doing TV stuff, I guess.
I just thought it was very this episode particularly stood out to me with the way it was shot. I don't know why. I don't know if I don't know. I don't know if I was just still I have today is when I have all my film seminars. I don't know if I just for some reason hadn't quite thrown the mindset away yet. But it was and then it would be there were lots of those weird lens flares and just weird stuff, and I just felt like there was something there, but I don't really know what it is.
Well,
I noticed the wide angles in the Telosian things, especially when we were seeing Spock's memory in the asylum. But other than that, I didn't realize. I'm sure they were there. It's just something that like just went right over my head.
Mm.
For good or bad, I did think that this was pretty well directed, specifically because there's a lot of scenes where we're trying to communicate very strange ideas. The fact that we're standing here, but we're also in an illusion. People in the illusion are in the illusion, but they're talking to people who are there but not there. The thing with the young Burnham and Spock fighting and then being replaced by the adults, and which was clearly like a strong choice. And I thought that was handled really well. Maybe it's just because like I'm a veteran sci-fi watcher, like I get like what's going on. But I think even if you weren't, it was very well communicated. So good job.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
Okay. Well, I think we are we're at that point in the show where we look forward, and I guess it's a good idea to ask what's coming up. What are the lights? Who's the angel? How is Spock involved? Is Dr. Robot going to need a reboot? What's coming up on the next episode of Discovery?
Well, I think. Oh, go ahead.
Not everybody wants.
I think I'm worried. I'm worried about Arium.
Yeah. Well, in true Discovery form, it looks like we're not going to have to wait long to find out what's going on with that.
We don't know her quite well enough for me to know that she's safe. And even, like, I'm like, oh, you're kind of, like, you're just on the bridge. Like, we all know you and we all know your name now. But, like...
Yeah, I don't think they're going to kill her, but it's possible, I suppose.
I hope not. I'm really tantalized at the idea that we'll get to learn something about her. Like, I don't... It's such a, knowing what we know about androids, artificial intelligence, and complicated subjects in the world of Trek, and to me, she just seems like a line item on a brainstorming list of like character ideas. Robot girl. And so I'm really excited for them to show us that they clearly are going somewhere and they have a great concept for her. And I don't expect them to just stop everything and just tell me what it is. But in an episode like this, hopefully we'll get to, learn more about her. I'd like to see her go through a transformation, maybe like Saru, like an evolution. That seems to be leveling up the characters, seems to be something that Discovery is really interested in. An upgrade.
I hope that too. Yes.
Yeah, well, she's currently Arium 2.0. Make her Arium 3.0.
Right. Yeah. Arium Vista, but not that, though. And then also we're heading to Section
Arium
31's...
ME.
God, the worst. Just jettison her right now, yeah. It looks like we're heading to Section 31's headquarters next week.
Yeah. So, I've been thinking, as far as Section 31 goes, that at some point, there's got to be something that happens that makes Section 31 get officially disbanded. Because they're basically, like, at this point, they're like the CIA. Everybody knows about them.
Yeah.
And we know in the 24th century that's not the case.
Right.
That they're like the secret CIA in the 24th century. No one knows about them. So I'm thinking there's got to be this, whatever's happening next week or a continuation of that, Section 31 is gonna cross the line, and they'll be officially disbanded by the Federation, I think.
So do you think, because it seems like Leland is really bad at his job, and when Giorgio kills him, it'll be totally deserved. Do you think Giorgio then will possibly be like the patron saint or like the J. Edgar Hoover of the new version, the new secret version of Section 31?
Yep, and I think that's going to set up that new show perfectly.
Nice. Oh, I'm down. Ella?
Hell yeah.
She's in. Yeah, and as far as like, I'm the guy who says that canon's a dirty word. Here's the third time I'm going to mention canon. It does seem strange, like somebody like Captain Pike, who is a storied, captain in Starfleet. I like the fact that we get a captain's log from him, but he specifically mentions 31, and captain's logs must be like historical documents. Do you know what I mean? They're like the Constitution.
Right.
Like other captains must look at them. So
that's...
either at some point everybody just believes that they're gone and they'll never come back, and of course they do, or Section 31 sends a virus into the web to erase like all, the goodbye virus from Batman Dark Knight Rises or whatever.
I'd
You're,
believe
like,
a combination of the two, actually.
Oh, both of
Honestly, yeah, so I'm thinking at some point 1631 is going to get disbanded officially. The Federation is going to order their dissolution. They're not actually going to go away, but they'll be working in secret from then on.
Right.
And they will work to eliminate all record of them so that as time goes on, fewer and fewer people will even remember they existed.
I can see that.
Yeah, like you're listening to Captain Pike's logs, and it's just like, and today, redacted, did redacted.
Right.
Like,
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I could see that happening. Well, I think, we went a ways here, but I think we got it all. So let's bring it to a close, and that's it for our show this week. Thanks for joining us, listeners. I want to say, if you like what you hear, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter at EISTPOD for updates and to get notified when both episodes of Enterprising Individuals and Discoverage are released. We've also got a discussion group on Facebook called Enterprising Interlocutions, which you can find by searching or by going to facebook.com/EISTpod. It's a group where we go deeper into the kinds of discussions and speculation you've heard tonight. You can also tweet to us on the show by using the hashtag Discoverage or email us at eistpod@gmail.com. And while you're on the internet, why not head to your listening platform of choice and subscribe to our show, give us a rating and a review because it really helps us out. Also, we've got some merch. You can check out our t-shirts that are available on our TeePublic store. Search for Just Enough Trope on TeePublic. That's our parent network for our snazzy Trek wear. And if you like the show, tell a friend. Discoverage will return on March 14th for the next episode of Season 2 of Star Trek Discovery. That episode is entitled Project Daedalus, and it was written by the newly announced co-showrunner for Season 3, Michelle Paradise, and it's directed by Mr. Jonathan Frakes. You guys have any clues as to what Project Daedalus might be about?
I don't.
What's the project?
I mean, we saw from the as far as what Project Daedalus is.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if we're going to go back to the Enterprise well again.
Yeah.
So there was a season 4 episode of Enterprise that admittedly was not a very good episode.
Right.
Called Daedalus.
Yeah.
And it was about the transporter and the inventor of the transporter, whose name actually appears in the credits of Discovery. When they show the transporter, they actually say that it was designed by Emery, and I've forgotten his last name, but that's the guy from that episode of Enterprise.
And this is the thing where he's like his kid got beamed into subspace or something like that. He's trying to get him
right.
out. Yeah.
So I'm wondering if they're somehow going to tie that in, but again, probably not because that's
It's
deep
so
cut.
explicit, though. Yeah, I don't know.
Do it. Do it.
Do it. Make Discovery the linchpin that ties the whole thing together.
Just me outside the writer's room yelling, "Cowards!"
I want to see a young, Grand Nagus Zek, making his first dollar and putting it on the wall.
Oh my God! Yes,
Everything connects together. So ears,
that would
so
be
smooth.
amazing.
Well, hopefully that'll be true. We'll see. In the meantime, you can check out our main show at Enterprising Individuals at enterprisingindividuals.com. Every Wednesday, I and a guest will discuss in excruciating detail a selected episode from a Star Trek series. We also have news from the Trek sphere, updates on Star Trek Discovery, and interviews with special guests. And speaking of Enterprise, and we have a lot tonight, we just released our first episode about Star Trek Enterprise. It only took 4 years, but we did it. I have a conversation with Peter Byrne of Trek vs. Trek about a real cracker of an episode, the episode Twilight. And you can find conversations like that, off-topic rants, DS9 and Voyager episode recaps, and more at our Patreon page at patreon.com/EISTpod. Thad, thanks so much for joining us tonight. Where can people find you online?
You can find me personally on Twitter at Tyrannicus. That's TYRANICUS. And you can find my podcasts, Delta Flyer, where we're slowly working our way through Voyager. That's at Delta Flyer Pod on Twitter, or available on any podcast device that you want to use. The other show that I have is Stargate Weekly, where we're doing the same thing, just with Stargate instead of Star Trek. And that's at Stargate Weekly, or again, on any podcast player you want to use.
Awesome. And Ella, thanks as always. Where can people find Generations Geek?
generationsgeek.com and generationsgeek on Twitter and Instagram.
Yeah, definitely follow them on Instagram. Ella's got a lot of great pictures from England and the things that she's checking out there. Yeah. So that's it for us. Thanks for listening, and we are signing off. This is Aaron for Thad and Ella saying, live long and prosper.